Hey guys, I'm Brandon. So recently on Instagram, I'd mentioned about a topiary that I'm training and how I'd propagated it from just a clipping off of one of my parent plants. I've let all my myrtles get really shaggy, and I've had a lot of people ask, hey, can you do a video on trimming, propagation, that kind of stuff. So today I'm going to go ahead and start on the trimming process. I will do a separate video for propagation, so just keep an eye out for that. So I've got a couple of different girls, as I call them. Got two different ones here. This one is super healthy, super shaggy. You can see all the really crazy long growths on the top. This one's a little bit smaller, and this one I need to repot. So I am going to trim it, but I'm going to wait just a little bit longer before I repot it into a different pot. But I'll still go over the whole trimming process with it. Same thing applies. So I'm going to actually be doing pretty much all of my myrtles today. So before I get started on anything, I just want to throw out there that these myrtles, in general, for propagation, like the first thing I'm going to go through and do is, so this is a little bit for the next video I'm going to be doing, is that I'm going to go through and I'm going to pull off these leads. I'm going to step around a little bit closer so you guys can see what I'm talking about. So this one here, let me move my hand, is a really good lead. And so this will sniff it off down here. So you can see, I don't know if you can see with my hand, but right in here it splits. So there's two shoots that we would be able to make into two possible baby myrtles. So that's what we're going to be shooting for, is to get all of these big leads off and throw those into a container. So I do have a container here to the side that I'm going to be tossing those into. So let me grab my container and we will get this going. So my container today is just literally the lid to a seed tray, which I'm going to be using in just a moment. So to hold this down, stick that. We're doing it super technical and super fancy today. All right. So I do have this on a towel so it doesn't scratch up the table. But what I'll go through and do first is just start snipping some of these leads off. So this one goes probably about 6 inches or so in. So I'll go through and snip that off first. I want to get all these really good healthy leads first, because that in itself will make for a really nice propagation. So go through and get that. So I'm going to just work my way around this topiary and be selective about the ones that I pull off first, because I want to get really nice propagation pieces first and foremost. And then once I have as many as I want, then at that point is when I'll start really going through and just hacking away at this thing and really getting the shape back into place. All of these myrtles have been in my greenhouse since October, and I think they've received maybe one trim since they've been in there. So it's definitely time. So here is one that I was able to get two off of. They're nearly identical in height, but you can see that they've got really strong brown to them. So I'm gonna step around so you can kind of see what I'm talking about. So here at the top, you've got all the fresh green growth. Here towards the bottom, it's a little bit more woody. And so with that woodiness, that's going to help you as far as stripping all of these lower branches away so you can get that propagation started. So we'll keep spinning it around and snip some of these off. I'm not using anything fancy for trimming. I'm just using basic kitchen scissors. Sorry, William. So we'll go through and get as many of these as possible. And like I said, some of them are going to be long, some are going to be short. You win some, you lose some with these. Sometimes they will propagate really easy, and other times they do not propagate well at all. So it's really just a kind of a game with it. So, but we're getting a lot of really good ones on here. I purposely have let these get really long and shaggy for the sole purpose of doing this, because I wanted to let them get as much growth as possible so I could have plenty of really good little cuttings for propagation. So got a few more I can get off of this, and then we will just start hacking away, and I'll kind of talk my way through what I do when I go to trim them and shape them. to keep that nice shape to them. This one, I've actually got two. They're this size. I purchased last summer from Sweet Pea Knoxville, and they were intended to be used for our wedding, but we ended up canceling it due to COVID because we're concerned with everyone's safety. So I do have a few shoots here at the bottom along the trunk. I'm also going to snip those off. Oop, there it went. And we'll try to propagate those as well. I personally don't like the little shoots at the bottom. I don't like them when they're bushy towards the base. I just think it looks really sloppy, but that's just me. You may like that. Okay, so we've about got all of these off of here. And that one does not want to come out. Okay, so this is the last one we're going to snip off, and then I'm just going to start trimming. And as you can see, I mean, that was pretty quick, and I've got handfuls of propagations. This has been, like I said, since October since this one's been trimmed. So I'm going to set this on the floor, on the ground, and we'll get to trimming. So in general, topiaries, when you're trimming, first thing you want to do is find your top. You may think the top is up here, but really the top is usually a little bit further down in. So you want to kind of really tighten this up, because the longer you let it get, the laggier it's going to get, and it's going to have a lot of open holes in there. So we're really going to take a hard cut on this one. So you can see my scissors are really down in there. So we're just going to start hacking away at it. And as you start to go around the edge, you're going to tip your scissors on an angle, and that's how you're going to get your sides. And you just want to rotate it as you go to keeping that angle, not really to change it much. So you can already see it's starting to curve off, and this is how much is still left that needs to be taken off. But in general, with topiaries, it doesn't matter what you're trimming, whether it's a myrtle like this, or whether you're doing a lemon cypress or a boxwood, just cut it. I mean, it's going to grow back. It'll be fine. And you know what? If it's not, then oh well. Part of it. You win some, you lose some. Let's keep going here. Now, the most crucial part in making them really pretty topiary shape is the bottom. So on this one was already really shaped very well from the get-go when I got it. But you do still have to kind of get in there towards the base and get that cleaned up some. Because if you don't, you're going to end up having one that's going to be really nice and full on the top, and then it's just going to be flat, or it's going to be kind of funky at the bottom. So that's something you'll just kind of have to play with. And let's see. The biggest thing is to keep rotating it so you can keep a consistent form to it. Otherwise, you're going to end up with something that's going to get a little lopsided. And here in Tennessee, I live in East Tennessee, and I'm kind of between zones. I'm right between 6B and 7A. Some winters are a little bit harder than others, but in general, I'm going to pull all these over to the side, try to keep them lumped together so they don't blow off in the grass, because if there are any propagation pieces I can use, then I'll have them all together. But what I was saying is that I do live in 6B, 7A as far as my growing zone, and I have about a month before I can move my myrtles and other topiaries back outside. And usually in the summer months, I will leave them in our courtyard. For anybody that follows me on Instagram or possibly Facebook, you have probably seen those spaces on there. So I try to spread them out a little bit, but you can see this is already tightened up quite a bit. Before, it was probably up into here. I've really pulled a lot of growth out, as you can see. but that will allow this to keep that nice, compact, and tight growth on there. When you let it get too bushy, it just seems to flop. You need to let it have that structure and that form, because otherwise it's going to get too much growth on the outside and it's going to pull it down and it's going to look really heavy. It's not going to carry out the way that you would like it to, as far as keeping these pretty little crisp looking topiaries. So here's one that's on the bottom. I don't know if you can really see that, but I've got some limbs that are kind of already pointing down. So I'm just going to go through and trim up the base just a little bit. This side here, it's got like a little bit of a gap in there. That'll fill in as time goes on, as these get back outside. They've been very happy in the greenhouse this winter, so I don't have a whole lot of concern there. I know that in a very short amount of time, this will fill in. So the one thing that I have really liked with having them in the greenhouse is that they've had very little leaf drop. And as far as seasonal funk and seasonal depression and how you feel, I felt so good because having the greenhouse has forced me to go outside and take care of these plants. And they've really enjoyed the humidity, and I've not had the mess in the house with the leaf drop and having little leaves scattered about and so on. So that has been a wonderful thing. So I do have a lot of leaves sitting in the top of the container. I will blow that out in just a moment, but I'm going to go ahead and switch over and get this little smaller topiary that I'd sat down, and we'll start trimming on it. Let's move this one out of the way. So like I said, this one is also from Sweet Pea Knoxville. Picked her up last summer as well, and a lot of people will say that they have a hard time finding myrtles. They can be hard to find. They're a little bit more of a designer plant, I guess. Um, I picked up some from Knoxville, from Sweet Pea. I picked up some from Passiflora, Kalamazoo, in Michigan. I have ordered some from Hertz Garden on just online. I think they have like an Etsy shop. But I'm also lucky enough to have a nursery that is literally 2 minutes from our house that I can go pick up a myrtle at any time. Now, the ones that are down the street from me, they're not as neat and tidy and formed as this. They're a little bit more of a project. But it's nice to have those. So this one, like I said, it is a little, you can see it's starting to drop some leaves. It needs to be repotted. So I'm going to give a tug on this one. You can see it's very root bound, and this one will need to be repotted very soon, but I'm going to wait to do that until spring. So I'm going to go ahead and trim it. This one is not bad. This one's going to be a very quick trim. And like I said, don't be afraid to cut it, because if you mess it up, it's going to grow back. Now, I do have one topiary that a few years ago I was trimming it, and I actually cut off one of the main branches in there, and in doing that, it has a big hole that's brought in the top of it, but you know, it is what it is. It gives character. We're going to say that. So now this one, it has experienced a decent amount of leaf drop. I may not have watered it as much. I had this one in the house for just a little bit, and I think it got a little dry. So it happens. It happens. But the big thing with myrtles, if you're not familiar with them, keep them watered. Keep them watered. Keep them watered. That is my biggest word of advice, is to keep these things watered. I come out to the greenhouse every day for sure, and I water about every other day. If you wait longer than that, you're probably going to lose them. They're water hogs. So that is trimming a topiary. As far as lemon cypress, boxwoods, exact same setup. You just want to start at the top, angle your clippers, your hedge trimmers, whatever you've got, angle it and work your way down and around. That's going to allow you to have that neat, tidy, compact shape that you really like in the garden. So with this, I'm going to start doing our next video, and keep an eye out for it. Once I get it edited, I'll get it posted, and that one will be about propagation. So you guys have a great day and happy gardening.